My guest today is Akash Shakir, Head of Growth at EB Pearls. I've worked with Akash and EB Pearls for a number of years now, and when it comes to any question I have, anything design, development, Akash, is this going to work or that going to work? He's the first guy I come to, and he's also one of the nicest guys in the industry. So Akash, thank you so much for joining us on InboundBuzz.
Cheers. Thanks, Moby. Good to chat with you today.
Awesome. All right, let's get straight into it. Firstly, why don't you explain exactly what you do at EB Pearls in your role of Head of Growth?
Oh, I do a lot of things. It's around business. How can we improve technically? That is, because I come from a technical background. Even if I do sales, strategy, growth related work, but it's mostly working with the clients to make sure they go on the right track. In our industry, it's very easy to be sidetracked because there's so much talk going in and around what you can do, what you can't do, and you've got plenty of examples. We've got millions and billions of website apps are reaching millions anyway. So I control that so that our clients become successful and make sure that they're on the right track.
Cool. You're not wrong about there's millions and millions of examples, because there's millions and millions of good and bad best practice out there as well. So I'm sure you encounter this stuff every single day. And the big one, I have to start with this, is the whole idea of banners and sliders. Right? So it's 2017, people are still doing it. I've got my view, but I'll just kick it straight to you. Banners and sliders on a homepage, what's your view? What do you think?
Well, it's always the question that I get asked a lot, because I think the senior executive always likes the sliders, because they say, the 5 carousel will display the 5 big messages that we have to give. But these days nobody's going to look at the second or the third or the fourth one. They're only going to look at the first one, because everybody who's using your website will be looking at it in the mobile phone or the tablet or the Surface or those kind of devices, and scrolling is so easy in those devices. You can easily miss what's in the horizontal slide. Nobody slides horizontally, everybody slides vertically, because it's easier, it's natural, and display the information in one fold rather than in multiple folds across the horizontal slide.
It's interesting you say multiple folds, because technically it is a fold, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why people say, oh no, it has to be above the fold. You talk to, I think you talk to this a little bit like, the head of an organization saying, I've got this department and that department, we can't have it on the bottom, it has to be above the fold. But it is a fold. It's still a horizontal fold, right? Whereas you're saying they're conditioned to scrolling with their fingers and up and down.
Yeah, well, what happens is, obviously you have to look at the intuitiveness of the user. Intuitiveness is a big factor. That's why iOS did such a good job when they were first launched, because everything was so intuitive that nobody has to think. A kid can use an iPhone. A 70-year-old man who have never used a computer can use an iPhone. So above the fold is sort of like, it used to be on a horizontal slider basis. Now it's on the vertical slider basis. Anything that you can put on the page, it's better. Anything can slide. It's not really something. Information will definitely be lost if you put it in the sliders these days, especially.
And I've definitely heard that from yourself countless times now, talking to people about this. But for anyone who's listening or watching the video version of this, and you can get the video version at redpandas.com.au/EP70, so you can see me and Akash and our handsome I'm joking. You can check us out there and what we look like and whatnot. But yeah, so what about people who are listening or watching and they have a slider and they've got 6-7 messages? What do they do? Do they go for a single message? Do they have to make compromises? What is your view? If we get rid of slider, what do we put in its place?
I think once you've got the slider in, it's hard to get it away, because you may have different kind of website. Again, every business is different. I'm not saying that you do not have the sliders. I'm not saying that at all, but it's better to use content on a scrolling or a grid basis. Maybe if it's a big slider and if there's 4 of them and those 4 are your key messages, you can pretty much stack them up or The other thing that you can do is create a tile of 4 or a tile of 2, display it properly. There's multiple ways of designing it. It's just about the whole thing about user experience and user interface. There's multiple techniques to get around with it. Well, you need to know what your USP is. If there is like market related USPs, you may have multiple USPs for a particular country, for a particular target audience. You just have to evaluate what's important to you, and that's the most important thing is the one that you display.
That's the one you stick with.
Yeah.
There's a question later on mistakes people make, which I'm keen to get into. I think we'll circle back on this. But you touched on mobile already, and you're right. Like we can't not have this conversation not talk about mobile. Like we have to talk about mobile. So the mobile topic itself, what's better for Google? Like a lot of people get confused, adaptive and responsive, and this algorithm and mobile it really confuses a lot of people. So what is better for Google now in 2017, responsive versus adaptive? And then you can explain what those things are as well.
Oh, sure. The first thing is people do not understand what responsive is and what adaptive is. They would have heard adaptive somewhere, they would have heard responsive somewhere, they would have heard mobile responsive somewhere. I had a client who said, I want mobile responsive, I don't want responsive. I mean, that doesn't really make sense. But, there was a time when everybody was looking to move their website from a desktop-based website to a mobile website, or there was a time when they were looking to get all the desktop websites without changing the design, without changing anything, because it's working for them, to also have that website on their mobile displaying correctly, and that's when the adaptive,
so that was two versions essentially, right? Yeah.
Not exactly the versions, right, okay. But it's sort of, in adaptive you design multiple versions of your website so that you know exactly how it's going to look on the mobile, exactly how it's going to look on tablet, exactly how it's going to look on the laptops, and exactly how it's going to look on the bigger computers. Whereas responsive you design really once and then you adapt to the size of the device. So you have to do a lot of engineering. Responsive from development perspective, people like us is you really need to know your skills in order to do that. You really have to think hard on exactly how it all behaves when it is put together. Adaptive is an easier one, a junior developer or someone like that can get around with it. But responsive, you have to be really, really skillful, and that's why maybe
adaptive is almost a lazy option.
Yes. If you've got a lot of money and then you can afford to design a lot of different screens for different device size, then you can use adaptive. But what Google loves responsive, because Google themselves produce phones these days, and phones of different sizes. Apple produces phones of different sizes. Samsung produces phones of a lot of sizes. So we have to respond to each and every device size. So Google understands that, but not only Google, everybody in this industry who is trying to work with you, Facebook for example, they love responsive. Responsive is the way to go, has to be the way to go. And the fundamentals from Google, they have this website called Web Fundamentals, which we follow by heart here at EB Perils. That's what has made us EB Perils, I guess. And
so it's called Google Web Fundamentals. It's like a language. What is it? Like a process, a quality control thing?
It's sort of like a Bible for web developers or designers. It tells you exactly how they want the design to look like. And that sort of creates the material design and the Web Fundamentals design side of things.
Awesome.
And it also tells you about the speed optimization, the UX side of things, and tells you what to do, what not to do for Google to really help you to get up.
Awesome. I'll probably grab a link from you. We'll link it in the show notes. People can check it out.
Sure.
And it's a good question to ask your developer. Are you using these Google design principles? I heard about material design a while ago. And was that the thing where Google took pieces of paper and they took like icons and they took hard paper and they turned that into a design language? What is material design? Or maybe
but it's mainly built for Android phones, because iOS obviously had its own really strict design principles. So Google, what they did was they tried to make things simple in Android, and they introduced this thing called material design, where it's pretty much like it's a better looking mobile application design.
So I guess for the layman, that dictates the look and feel of everything that they do, that particular styling and the big buttons and when you touch an icon and it lifts to your finger, that sort of, okay,
Yeah,
cool. All right, I know we're probably getting a little bit geeky here, but I'll link to it in the show notes if you're interested in that sort of stuff. Okay, so now in 2017, do you design for the mobile first or do you design for the desktop first?
I think that completely depends on the client and the target audience. Everything that we do these days depends upon quite a few things. You can't really say, oh, we have to do mobile first, because that's what's written all over in the magazines. If you read web design magazines, that's what they say, do mobile first, because a lot of the users are there. But that can't always be true, because there are industries where people are still using laptops. So it really depends upon the target audience, the inspiration that the client has for their business, and obviously their USP. So these days what we do is we pretty much focus more on the UX than the UI. So when you do the UX, you generally do UX as much as possible, like desktop, mobile, tablet. But mostly we start with the desktop because it's very easy to think about
And
how
plan,
it is gonna, and then that can translate very easily to mobile. Whereas mobile is a lot less real estate, so going from mobile to desktop is generally harder. But the trend in the market is completely different. But we work in the real world, we don't work in magazines, and it works really well when we do both, desktop and mobile, but do desktop first, translate it into mobile, test it, obviously usability testing, and then you get best out of both worlds.
And that's the problem with these golden rules, isn't it? They're just terrible. They're the worst things when it comes to this industry. I would tend to agree with you, because when you're planning and thinking about what that page looks like, you're starting on a desktop, and I think you also apply some quite well when you said you look at that business, because someone's journey might start on mobile, but they might convert on desktop. It depends on the business, which kind of leads me to my next question. How has mobile changed the way you approach web design in 2017? And maybe you can talk about different clients and different approaches. What has that done for your processes now?
We started in 2005 where we only had desktop to worry about. Now we've got more than from a testing perspective, we need to test at least around 8 to 10 devices. That has definitely had a big leap on the amount of work that we need to do. But I think from a consumer perspective, from people who are actually using this website's perspective, it has been such a massive growth. The users of the website, the normal people using websites daily, has nearly gone up by more than 20%. If we only consider the last 3 years, because internet has been so easily accessible, the network has improved, versus people have designed this amazing responsive website that people are able to do anything they like in the mobile phone. So it has massively changed the way we look at websites, and the way people use websites these days. Pretty much 62%, I think, of the online shopping is either done through a mobile app or the mobile website.
Right, okay.
Responsive website. So that is a huge thing. You pretty much, if you don't have mobile phone, you're losing a lot of sales.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some design trends. So this is your world day in, day out. Talk to me about some design. I know we spoke about best practice. It's like quote unquote golden rules, and it all sucks. But that aside, what are some design trends that you've seen, you've noticed, that you're kind of liking right now?
See, I come from a really, really technical background, so I'm not a designer, but I work with designers here every day, and work with designers overseas, over in Europe and in US. So a lot of the designs these days are very typography focused. Images say a lot, but these days the trend has been towards big bold text, so that you get to read you get the people to read what you want them to read, and also it's about clean, neat, simple websites. Minimalistic, very, very important, because you know, I think it's about it's related to fashion. That's what I'll say, you know, because
it's interesting. Fashion.
What happens in fashion is, you know, for 3 or 4 years, you know, you've got, you know, in fashion you'll have t-shirts with a lot of prints. And then after that, after 3 or 4 years, then you get t-shirts with very simple design, very, very minimalistic design. And then after that, people get tired of it. And then after again 2-3 years,
it becomes retro and
it becomes retro. Yeah. And that's exactly what's happening in our industry. You know, there will be a lot of flashes, you know, message coming across, sliders, video, you know, lots and lots of content in a particular page. And then now it's nearly shifting towards having minimalistic look and feel, clean, neat, simple. Content is the most important thing. Images goes in between the content.
It supplements the content.
The content. Approach, because you know, content is what Google loves, but more than that, content is what people are in your website for. You know, images helps them to understand that content, but they're really there to find out the information that they're looking for, and they need to get to that information as quickly as possible, and you can only do that with clean, neat, plain and simple words to get there. So that is one of the main thing, you know, that 2017 and 18 will do to the people, is to get to the information as quickly, as easily, as neatly as possible.
So when you talk about you know, images supplementing the content, so the content is the key. The image is it's not the hero, it's supplementing that. Does that apply for video as well? And what are your views on particularly in the design world and development world, video backgrounds? What's your view on that? How to use them rightly, wrongly? There's a technical side of not just uploading a bloody video, that's big, but then also the aesthetic or business side of why you should use it or shouldn't use it.
Videos are a very important part of, you know, how you disseminate your information. You know, it depends upon the scenario again. You know, if you're putting a banner video in your website, you know, it may or may not mean anything. You know, it creates a perception. You know, when you put a video in your, say for our website has a video background, which we will be moving in about 3 weeks to an image, and there's a reason for that. But you know, having a video up there creates a perception that, oh, okay, that's how they are working, or that's how they do things. You know, I had a really good response when one of our clients put a video up in the context are using the videos. Video backgrounds, not a big fan of it, but
really, right, okay.
Yeah. But in terms of the video that you put to manage your content or to enhance the content that you've written, it really helps. Like for example, I was trying to buy a heater from DeLonghi. You know, I was trying to look at a lot of different other companies and trying to find out what is the best heater. Then DeLonghi in their website had a really nice video. You know, what kind of room do you have in your house? You know, there's like, they divide the house into 4 different rooms and then showed, if your room is this size, this is the best heater. If your room is this size, this is the best heater. That really helped me make a decision, and I just bought it from them. You know, but it's that easy. Video definitely helped there. But generally in video background case, you know, in the main banner, people generally use it to show off. You know, so you really have to define your USP there. Then it definitely makes sense. But
don't do it for. I guess what you're saying is don't do it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
If there's a USP in it, maybe, I don't know, maybe you're a fashion design house and you want to have a perception. Because you're right, because perception stands for something. Yeah. Use it or don't use it. Yeah. So why did you mentioned you guys are taking it off your website? What's the reason behind that?
Because we did it for a show off as well.
Yeah, right.
So it's time to get
serious. Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, it's time to pretty much, you know, get into the serious zone, and you know, we're putting up a really nice image, an image that we had we took ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's going to be back where we're drawing drawing pretty much the wireframes and all that. But a good example of a video is one of our client who is a swimwear company, and they put it up there because, when somebody types in their swimwear, they want to be classic and they want to be like, we are one of the most reputable swimwear in Australia. And they put a fashion suit, meaning a ramp walk kind of swimming suit video. That actually lifts their credibility so high, because you can be any swimwear company, but if you're doing that kind of activity, it really means that you are one of the classic ones,
Yeah.
So it really lifts there.
Whereas, like, say you're, an industrial mining company, having a video that's just panning shots, unless there's a key USP or a key reason why you have it. Like, say maybe you want to show your processes or something, and it's enhancing the content. I think doing the show off.
Yeah.
Are we enhancing the content? Are we a perception that we're portraying? Is it clear? What is this page designed to do?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is really I really like, after the banner question, this was the second question I really wanted to ask you when I thought about we thought about this interview. Is, so you see this project all the time, and people make your clients and my clients, like, they make a lot of mistakes when it comes to web design, approaching it, because they might only do it once every 10 years. So the question is, and this might be multiple faceted, what's the biggest mistake or mistakes you see clients make when they're trying to approach a website project that you have to educate?
You'll be surprised with my answer. I really have to sort of think about it, but in most of the cases, when you actually do a website for a client here, they don't really know what the business is, or they don't really know, where do they want to take their users or the customers to, in other words, they don't really know what the unique selling point is. They don't really know what they want the users, when they come to their website, to do. So clarity is a really, really big factor. They will look at 10 or 20 different competitors' websites. They will want everything from each one of the competitors.
Oh, that's the worst, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just taking a hodgepodge of a hodgepodge of other businesses who don't really know what they want either.
Exactly. And if some of the clients who knows awards-winning websites and all that sort of stuff, they want every bit of animation that's in there, And award-winning websites, the problem with them is they really create to win the award. Maybe they won't create it to please the audience that needs to be pleased.
I love that. I didn't know we were going to touch on that, but my biggest irks in this industry, we're both agencies that cross over, is agencies who do things just to win awards. Yeah. That just irks the bejesus out of me. So exactly. I'm going to get off topic, but so you're right. So they don't have clarity around what action they want people to take. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
When people arrive on their website.
Here at EBPros, what we do is we know that people will make those mistakes. So we've been in business for nearly 12 years now. So what we've done is we've created a framework in place where we don't want our clients to be, off track of anything. So we ask them 5 or 6 simple questions, and not a lot of them really have exact answers to those questions. But we try and do a workshop. If one is not enough, we'll do 2, we'll do 3, but we'll make sure that they get those answers. Some of them are very basic questions. Who is your target audience? And they may say, well, men 20 to 30. We'll ask them, how do you get that data? Because it is very important. You'll think, like, for example, EBPros, when we did that analysis ourselves, we've got a really big marketing, sort of strategy that we built. We thought our audience was, on a certain section, but we were completely wrong unless we tracked it. And that was, we analyzed the data for nearly 3 years to say, okay, this is where our target audience is. And a particular business, for them, target audience is the most important thing. Then you can really save a lot in marketing, a lot in when you're designing your website. You can create a certain perception, you can create a certain persona in the website, and target audience is really one of the most important things.
So with yours, the 3 years of data, because man, you're so right. We're all by default, we're all too close to our businesses. We're all, whatever the profile we think we have in a boardroom when we come up, it's going to be wrong, right? 100%. Or maybe 99.9% of the time. So the profile that what were some particulars? Like if it wasn't male for 20 versus something, was it like business size? What were some of the particulars of your persona that you defined?
Oh, it was very very definitive, you know. It was very random because we do work in a lot of different industry with a lot of different. So, you know, again, I won't touch on exactly the target audience
but just the
it,
actual. Did you look at age, sex, position, title? What were those?
Oh, we actually started with that, but what we ended up doing was, okay, where do they come from? You know, target audience, where do they come from? Are they coming from a particular industry? Are they coming from a particular source of leads? You know, a pool of leads, or are they actually coming from a particular mindset? You know, we actually really looked at target audience from a completely different perspective. We didn't we didn't go back to like male, female, 20, 30. We didn't look at that because that meant nothing to our business. You know, what really meant to our, you know, what really made sense for our business was, you know, what mindset do they come to us from? What stage in the funding they're from? Say for example, they're doing a mobile application, they don't have money, but they have an excellent idea. You know, that is a really good audience for us in some cases. Because if their idea is good, we can get them funding, prepare them for funding, and do that project becomes successful. You know, that is the best thing that can happen to us. Whereas in the other cases, they can be businesses, you know, people in the case of 40 to 45 trying to, you know, maximize the potential of their business, you know, get to the next step, trying to automate their process, comes to us to build a mobile application and a web application. Now we really looked at from that perspective of who they are and what they're trying to do, rather than because age and everything doesn't really matter. Yeah,
I'm glad you touched on it. Yeah, that's where people start, male, female, 20. But like, I mean, you know, like you have 20-year-olds doing things 50-year-olds can't do. You've got people starting businesses when they're 60. You know, it's just they're just vanity identifiers, aren't they? I love it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you've said these words before, these acronyms UI, UX during this interview. People use them interchangeably because I don't think they understand them. What's the difference between UI and UX?
Well, it's very different, you know. It's sort of like it can be funnily different because you're talking about two different kind of people, and it's very, very misunderstood, you know. If I go to a client and say UI and UX and it's the same thing, they'll believe it. But really you're talking about a designer who can paint, you know, versus an engineer who is actually creating and building things, you know. UX is really about engineering, how the website or the application will actually be constructed. You know, I think the most important, you know, person while doing a website or a mobile application is a UX engineer, because, and I use this word particularly saying engineer because a lot of the people will say UX designer. You know, that's not the right word because there's no such thing as UX designer.
Isn't that a made-up term in a way? Like I hear this all. I'm a UX designer, and I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm sure there are people who. More towards the side, you're talking about the guys that you work with in your team, the UX engineers. But you're right, man. Sorry to jump in there, but the UX designer thing for me is a bit of a made-up term in a way.
Oh, definitely.
So you're talking about this UX engineer sort of.
Because what happens is you're a designer, and then you have an eye for a customer. Then you think, okay, I can do UX as well. Then you become a UX designer. That's what happened. But really, UX is all about engineering. UX is all about making sure, you know, there is the right sort of, you know, you understand the audience, you understand the goal of the project, and you design the product to meet that goal, you know. And you really have to be an engineer to do that, you know. If I was say for example, designer in Apple, you know, I wouldn't know how to, you know, create all those icons and all that sort of stuff that they came up with when they were pretty much engineering the iPhone, you know. It's all about engineering how it will all work, and then the designer will come in there and then make it look beautiful. You know, that's what these two terms are. UI is pretty much, you know, you're making it look beautiful on created sort of a template from a UX engineer.
For those who don't know, it's user interface.
Yeah.
So what that interface looks like.
Yeah.
Is that,
yeah. Exactly. That's right.
Cool.
And user experience, obviously UX.
How that
So-
works and what that. Yeah.
How
you
it
take
works, how it
control.
all connects, how each and every part of the application connects to each other, and where should that particular element be in that page, and how effective it will be to be there. When we work here at EB Pros, we focus more on UX. Even if our design looks great, and that's fair enough to our directors, but we spend a lot of time doing the UX, and we do every bit of that application in UX, and we do very little UI, because once you've done all that hard work engineering it, all our developers need is maybe a homepage design and a UI kit, and then they will turn around and give us a completed website. Once the UX is so concrete,
That's
and
the
so
hard part. Not let's what's going to be the prettiest thing first. This reminds me of something you said before. Let's get 10 of our competitors. Let's find a hodgepodge of businesses who probably don't even know what they're doing, and make it look pretty. Whereas you're saying we focus on the user experience first, and the UI is going to support that. Just like the images support the content. Yeah.
That's
Fantastic.
exactly right.
I love it. So what are some of your favorite tools, or maybe one or two key tools that you just can't live without, or you think are quite integral in your world?
While we're talking this topic called UX, I think UX Pin is a really good tool. People talk about InVision and all these other tools. They're very UI focused again. UX Pin is very much, that's why it's called UX Pin.
UX Pin, right? Yeah.
It's a really nice tool where you can do all the wireframes and things like that. You can interconnect things. You can really build a system out of it. But the best thing that the client love about UX Pin here when we use it is the collaboration. We don't really have to meet to discuss exactly how it should work. They can just go in there, middle of the night, comment.
They don't have to send you an email or print it out and do these sketches and send it back. It's all collaborative.
All collaborative, all online.
On this element,
Exactly. And it's a very good reference tool for the developers as well, to see how the whole application will, the flow of the application moves forward. So it's a very good tool.
So even when because inevitably, for those, I'm sure most of the listeners know this, but for those who don't know, and I'm summarizing this way too quickly, but once you identify the goals and your personas, what you're trying to do, and you develop a wireframe, then you go to design stage and development stage. So and I like what you said there. So the developers actually can see that trail as well. They can use UX Pins and see at the stages that were one or two stages before them, what was the customer thinking? What was their logic, or what were their reference sites at that point? So it's actually quite linear. It's not we're going to take it from one silo to another silo to another silo.
That is, there was this really big leap when it was all waterfall. You do the wireframes first, and then you do the design, and then you give that design to the developers, and they'll do it. Whereas now it's more agile. Developers
Agile,
get involved really at the front when they're understanding what the customer wants, and then taking that and then looking at the wireframes, and design is just a supplement to that UX to work on it. So that has really helped. If you consider us a lot, we have decreased hours and hours of development time by following that process.
It's great for you guys, and it's great for the client. And if you ask why you do this, the reason is the alternative is when someone goes through a traditional website process and they're like, I'm not happy with this, and they don't even really know why. It's because they didn't start with their actual objectives, what they actually wanted to achieve, which you say is the biggest mistake. And there was that disjoint between the waterfall. You've got the designer and developer, and it isn't linear. It's not agile. So I think that's great. I think that is a great way to kind of end this topic as well. I think this has been fantastic. It's been a breadth of knowledge for me, and I'm sure it'll be for our listeners. But I want to ask and end with a personal question. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, or your personal background, that people might not realize or be surprised to know about?
Actually, I come from a completely different background. I studied completely different things in my uni. I'm still technical, still in this industry, but but I actually studied to be a data mining engineer.
Data mining engineer, right?
So it's pretty much all my research, all my papers I wrote. I won the best paper for one of the topics that I wrote on, and all that sort of stuff. All that was for how in a very big distributed architecture you can easily find the data. So I did a lot of work around like for example Facebook or Stumble Upon or Google. There's wealth of information. There's number of data that you can't even think of, and if you need to find that small piece of information, how would you do that?
How do you find it?
There's things like everything in Google runs from one algorithm, and that's called MapReduce algorithm, and that's what I
what's that called?
MapReduce algorithm.
Yep.
So break it, search it kind of algorithm, and that's what I spend a lot of my time with. So now I'm trying a totally different end of the spectrum, where I'm working with day-to-day customers where we are actually building it for
solving problems.
Do
you think that's helped you? Do you think because it's you start from the data side and the mining side and how to find something. Now you're very much on, I guess, from a growth and a business objective solution point of view. Do you think that's helped you in your role?
It definitely helps. When you're a developer, which I used to be, it really helps you to tackle things in your life, because as a developer, people think we are really, really geeky and we just stay in the computer, but while you're programming, you're really creating and solving problems. So I find that a lot. When I'm doing something, say I'm going and I have a problem, say in my life, then I always think about it from a programming perspective. I generally solve it pretty quickly, So I think it has helped me a lot in this job, because I know the full spectrum now, because I spent a lot of time going into a lot of meetups, meeting different kind of people, working in different industries. I've worked with government to retail to fitness centers to every kind of people that you can think of. So I think understanding all that, and also understanding how it is all done in the end of the spectrum, I would say, because I think Google is the limit for us, and from there we start. That's how we look at the web design and mobile app development industry, where we think about Apple and Google, and then we start from there. That's how we do things, so that they manage the other side of the spectrum, we manage this side of the spectrum, where we create applications for them to deploy it in their platform.
Cool. Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you, Cash. That was a wealth of knowledge and a masterclass in your field of design and development. And if people want to check you guys out, that would be, I guess, ebpearls.com.au.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Anything else you think we haven't covered or you'd like to share with everyone?
Oh, well, I think we've covered quite a lot, but it's very important that when you're doing a website, think about why you're doing it, what you want to achieve, and then design, make it look neat, clean, simple, so that people who are visiting the website can
make it pretty for the sake of it.
Yep. Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Cash, thank you so very much.
Cheers. Thanks, Molly. Thanks for spending this time with me.